Hello and welcome back to another document deep dive. This time we're taking a look at the Italian front, which is the first. And we're taking a look at 26th Panzer Division, which as far as I know was the only Panzer division that spent a lot of time there. What with the terrain in Italy not being that suited for tanks. There were quite a few of Panzer Grenadier divisions though, but not Panzer divisions. Now, this is from the 7th of December 1943, and what we'll be doing today is look at these strengths documents to see what kind of equipment they had and how they were set up. And after that, also, we will read some after-action reports as well. Now, let's see. First of all, as always, let's take a look at the artillery, because as we all know, that's actually the main firing power of a division. Now, as you can see here, there's the normal artillery battalions with their batteries. So these are self-propelled 10.5 centimeters, so these are Vespers. These here are towed, and this is a towed flak. So as you can see, there was one battery of Vespers here, the rest was towed artillery. And it says here as well, 7 Panzer II SF. Panzer II SF are Vespers, so they had 7 here. And it also says, and now it gets interesting, 2 SFH, 2 heavy field howitzers. And it says here, 2 Panzer IV SF. Does anybody know if they ever mounted a 15 centimeter field howitzer on a Panzer IV chassis? Because that's kind of what it sounds like, but I've never seen something like that. So, as I said, no idea about that. Might be some weird field expedient, don't know. So these others here are towed 10.5 centimeter and towed 15 centimeter heavy and 10 centimeter long range guns. Fairly standard stuff. Now, as I said, this symbol down here, that means it's self-propelled. This symbol here means it's towed. This brings us to their flak, which is actually quite interesting. These were all self-propelled. So here we have self-propelled light 2 centimeter flak guns, but they also had, and this is completely unique as far as I know, or almost completely unique, they had 6 and 6, so 2 batteries of 6 guns, self-propelled 88 millimeter heavy anti-tank or anti-aircraft guns rather. As far as I can ascertain, it was this vehicle that they had, 88 millimeter flak on an 18-ton towing truck, basically, or half track. As far as I know, all 12 of those that were produced went to the 26th Panzer Division, so a fairly unique unicorn-type vehicle here that they had in Italy. Okay, back up here, this time to the infantry. Now these are fairly standard Panzer Grenadiers. The quality, as you can see, is not amazing, but you can see here 11 or 12 light machine guns everywhere, so 3 squads, each with 2 light machine guns, some with only 1, or maybe 1 with only 1. They have 5 Panzer 38 TSF in support, which are Grilles, so they had a 15 centimeter infantry gun on top of here. So these are in support of, I think, the way I read it, this unit, and another 5 are in support of this battalion here. Or maybe they're a regimental asset, it's not entirely clear. But yeah. So 5 per regiment seems about okay. Now, as you can see, they also have this symbol here, so 3, 1, 3. These were actually Granatbüchsen, so these are Panzerbüchse 39, converted to shoot heat rifle grenades, which was a field expedient. Later, these were mostly replaced by the Panzerschreck. One thing also to note here is that this is in December 1943. And the infantry is pretty burned out. As you can see here, 63.9% strength, 66% strength, 78 here. This one doesn't have the numbers next to it, but yeah, also seems fairly depleted, so there's only 2 companies in the 2nd battalion. So yeah, the fighting in Italy was especially rough on the infantry, with all the hills that had to be stormed and stuff, and all the heavy Allied artillery. And it shows here the infantry is massively depleted. And when we look at the AARs, you will see that they actually work together with infantry from other divisions, including Fallschirmjäger divisions, much of the time. Okay, now as you can see here, these are the Panzers. The 1st battalion was not actually in Italy. If we look down here, it says number 2, Anmerkung. Im Bereich OB West, so these were on the Western Front somewhere or in reserve in France, I guess. Maybe they were being refitted as well, but they were not in theater at the point. The 2nd battalion here, looks fairly standard. You have 4 medium companies, and each of them was a mix of Panzer 4K and Panzer 4L, so short 75mm gun, long 75mm gun, and the long ones were getting more and more common. So as you can see, it's always roughly half short and, or roughly half the number short compared to the long ones. So they were on their way out because they were obsolete at this time. Now what's interesting is that this unit had something very unique, which is or rather 2 flame companies. And this is actually why I'm making this video, because these are fairly rare. They were used sometimes on the Eastern Front in some units, but I think the 26th Panzer Division is actually the one that used most of them. So as you can see here, there were 2 companies, first and second, and the first one had 9 Panzer III Flamm, and the second one had 3 Panzer III Flamm. This is that same Panzer III in FH2. Flamm Panzer III, I should say. It's not available on any stock map, however it is on this event map here, which is Valirisk. This was originally from the Armin 8th Memorial event, and then we later brought it back quite recently in the Christmas event. The map, by the way, itself is not set in Italy, but in 1943 on the Eastern Front, where the Flamm Panzer III was also used. But the map itself is complete fantasy, because it's a remake for that old memorial event of a FH1 map. And back then they basically made the maps like, okay, I want to make a snowy Russian map with a big burnt out city in the center, and then after that they thought about a name. Like this town is called Valirisk, but there's no town like this in Russia. It's just a name that sounds Russian to the German guy who made the map. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the Flamm Panzer III, which was made very accurately by us. And the way it worked is, it's a normal Panzer III, and it kind of looks like it, but what's replaced is the main weapon. So it doesn't have a 5cm or 3cm gun. The machine guns are still there, but the main gun is replaced by a flamethrower. And as you can see on the top it had an aiming device as well for that flame-throwing gun, which works like this. And it also works in game, of course, if you know how to use it. So that was the length of one burst. And yeah, Flamm Panzer III. In addition to these Flamm Panzers, there also were captured Stuks. So each had 6 75mm Stuk I, so Italian. That was this vehicle here, the original Semovente 75, which we I think also have an FH2 or maybe an earlier version. These were also used and kept in production by the Nazis after Italy had switched sides. In addition to that, a 3 and 4 10.5cm Stuk I, so 10.5cm assault howitzers, also Italian production. These are these Semoventes here. Now, these were apparently called Bassotto by the Italians and Dachshund by the Germans. That said, none of the documents from 26th Panzer that I've seen refer to them as that, so I don't know if that's a post-war name or from some memoir or something, but it's not in the documents under that name, or at least not what I've seen so far. So yeah, as you can see, a fairly weirdly equipped unit, but that is fairly par of the course for Italy, because it was a secondary theater, and many of the German units here were always kind of behind the curve, especially when it comes to equipment like Panzers and so on. And instead there was much Italian stuff used, which makes a lot of sense in terms of supply and production. Anyway, what we will do now is we will take a look at some after-action reports, but first of all we will go to Google Earth to look at the overall situation roughly. Okay, we are here on Google Earth in Italy at the town of Osogna. And as you can see here, when we're zooming out a little bit, this is kind of halfway up the boot of Italy, but not quite at the level of Rome, I guess. And this is where the front was in December 1943. And this was also the position of the 26th Panzer Division at this point. Now, one more famous town is, okay, first of all, this is Osogna. As I said, This part here already existed at the time. This one was built new, so this was not there, but the road here already led up into the hilly terrain here. Just to give you an idea. So this road was already there, and that's the main road to a more famous town, which is Ortona, which is very famous, if you follow the road here, which is very famous for the battle that the Canadians had here against German Fallschirmjägers, which was also around this time or a bit later. Okay, we're gonna go back here. And at this time, the front literally went along this axis in front of this road, with 26th Panzer Division and a variety of other units being in this area holding the front against the 2nd New Zealand Division, which was attacking from this direction, basically up the boot here, right? So the New Zealanders came from roughly this direction, and this is what you have to keep in mind when we listen to this after-action report, or rather when I read it out. Combat report for December 7th, 1943, 6th Company, Panzer Regiment 26. On December 7th, 1943, 1 p.m. to 4:15 p.m., the strongest artillery fire on the company and neighboring sectors. At 4:15 p.m., enemy infantry attacked the eastern entrance to Ozonia. Was cleared in a counterattack. The tanks remained in position on the edge of the town with a security front to the east and south. A flame tank was used to set fire to the houses south of the road from the center of the town to the edge of the town. From 4 p.m., the enemy had penetrated the depression north of Ozonia with stronger infantry forces in the direction of the main road Ozonia to Ortona, and had advanced across the road in the sector of Panzer Grenadier Regiment 9. Now, first battle was here. The depression they are talking about is, I believe, either this one here or maybe even more likely this one. Some of the other literature I've seen points to this one. So New Zealand infantry went up here and penetrated through here and advanced across the road into this area. There was also apparently a cemetery in this area, possibly here. But I can't really find it right now. I don't know if it was developed over, because there's lots of agriculture there now. Not sure, just pointing that out. So, to sum it up from overhead view, we have Ozonia here. New Zealand infantry was blasted out of this part of the town. Later, other New Zealand infantry advanced across the road, probably from here, and infiltrated into this area. An assault gun and a flame tank under the command of Lieutenant Allard were deployed to seal off this area. The assault gun got stuck in the soft ground, and the flame tank slipped into the ground when crossing the bridge. Now, this is quite interesting. I believe it was possibly this bridge here. Because as you can see, if we go into 3D mode, obviously there's a little creek running down here. That said, I'm not 100% sure. It might have been one of these bridges as well. But it's hard to tell. They don't have a map with this AAR. But either of these would make sense. This one was probably the most prominent one, so I'm going to go with this one. They wanted to drive up here, then down the road here, to clear the infiltration attempt by New Zealand infantry here. Panzer IV with short 75 cm gun was then positioned briefly on the road, while a platoon of engineers sealed off the break-in. At around 8 p.m, the enemy infiltrated the southern row of houses at the eastern exit of Ozonia with infantry forces again, whereupon the grenadiers retreated to the northern row of houses. 1st Platoon, a 6th Company under the command of 1st Lieutenant Hammann, formed a barrier on the road in front of the Grenadiers to the south and east. At 11:45 p.m, the Grenadiers, together with a platoon of engineers, counterattacked after a fire strike from the tanks around 10 minutes, cleared the row of houses and reoccupied the road positions. The rest of the night was quiet, apart from minor nuisance fire. Signed, Schaft, 1st Lieutenant and Company Commander. Now, the second combat report is almost a week later, December 16th, and this is about another counterattack in this area. The front here wasn't really frozen, but at the same time it appears that they were not able to clear this penetration here and kept counterattacking it. So this is another counterattack that came later with reinforcements from 2nd Fallschirmjäger Division. 7th Company, Panzer Regiment 26. combat report for the attack on December 16th, 1943 against 354 south of Arieli. Now Arieli, I should say, is up here on the north. So this is Arieli. Parts of the division were here. So from this point, they could attack the penetration along the road here that I mentioned around that mysterious cemetery from the other direction, which is what happens in this report. Parts of the 7th Company, with parts of 1st and 2nd Flame Company and a vehicle from the 8th Company, attacked together with the 6th Parachute Regiment on December 16th, 1943 at 3:15 a.m. Now, this is the same famous Fallschirmjäger Regiment 6 that was a few months later in Normandy, for example, at the Purple Heart Lane and the Battle of Carentan. So these are the same guys. It says then here, organization, 3 tanks, 7.5 centimeter long, 1 tank, 7.5 centimeter short, 5 flame tanks, 3 Italian assault guns. So those are the tanks. The Fallschirmjäger infantry is not counted here because this is, as I said, a AAR by the 7th Company of the Panzer Regiment 26. The attack was carried out on the road to Osonia from point 304. So this road here, they attacked along this road from, I believe, roughly this area. That must have been the jumping off point, possibly this crossroad as well. The 6th Parachute Regiment advanced with 1 battalion on each side of the road. Lieutenant Allard's flame platoon, same guy as earlier, succeeded in smoking out 2 enemy machine gun nests. It is likely that a Sherman was set on fire. The enemy fired with all weapons and defended themselves bitterly. Hellish artillery fire was once again on the battlefield. Now, from here, I will switch over to the report by the Flammpanzer Company, which is a bit more detailed, but also more longer-winded, so I will switch to that when it comes to some interesting details here. For that same attack, they write, our company's own tanks, which initially advanced along the road with the support of the advancing paratroopers using machine gun fire, were pulled off the road to the left, so into this terrain here, were pulled off the road to the left after the main enemy resistance pockets were identified. Here it was possible to advance into the terrain with the flame tanks. Under surveillance by the Italian assault guns, the flame tanks were able to smoke out a large number of enemy machine gun and foxholes and significantly break enemy resistance while incurring considerable enemy losses. This ensured that the paratroopers could initially advance quickly. Combined cannon fire from the Italian assault guns and furious support fire from the machine guns of all tanks inflicted bloody losses on the enemy. It was even possible to set fire to an enemy tank that was standing under the cover of a haystack, but whose type could not be identified in the darkness by skillfully creeping up on it with several flame bursts. Back to the other AAR. The attack initially progressed quickly in excellent cooperation with the paratroopers until the lead vehicle was hit after about 2 kilometers, presumably by an anti-tank gun or tank, and stopped. This must have been maybe in this area here, if we are going by 2 kilometers, maybe a bit further. So this is how far they got. Shortly afterwards, the second vehicle also came to a stop after being hit. Since the road was blocked by the 2 out-of-service tanks and it was impossible to avoid them in the terrain, the paratroopers' fight was supported from this point until we could no longer overshoot. The enemy machine guns were silenced. Now, back to the Flammpanzer report. They say, the company's flame tanks took advantage of this traffic jam. Note, they meant the one that was caused by the knocked out tanks, to search the intermediate area again for enemy gunners and to destroy or drive them away with machine gun fire and flame bursts. The company fired more than 150 flame bursts during this attack. As soon as it got light, the company returned to its starting position. So basically, they drove around in this area, burned anybody they could find, and then when it became light, and probably they felt that anti-tank guns could now be trained on them, they drove back this road into Arieli here, back into cover from enemy artillery as well. Okay, back to the Panzer Company report. Losses: 2 Panzer 7.5 centimeter long, 2 flame tanks. Dead 1, wounded 1, missing 1. This does not include the Fallschirmjäger, obviously. the Flammpanzers go into a bit more detail here. The company suffered 2 total losses of flame tanks, one by a tank hit, one by a direct artillery hit. Wounded were 1 sergeant and 1 man. 1 sergeant is still missing today. So it seems like the dead was in one of the Panzer IVs, possibly the assault guns. Although I guess no assault gun is being mentioned as being hit. Okay, let's go back to the first report. Signed, First Lieutenant Ruckdeschel, Company Commander. So yeah, anyway, this is how these Flammpanzers were used in Italy. Night counterattack against the New Zealanders and lots of flaming involved, as you can imagine. Now, before we say goodbye to this unusual division, let's look at them again, but this time in March 1945, shortly before the end of the war, to see what has changed. I will not go into massive detail, but one thing you can maybe already see here is that normally they write down their small arms on the back. Now, Italy divisions at some point switched to a different kind of strength report paperwork, where they had this table at the side that goes into a lot more detail about their equipment. We will look at that at the end, but first of all, let's look at their tanks in this late stage. So as you can see here, they had Panzers, but 2 of the Panzer companies were not with them. They were somewhere else. Actually, we can look where they were down here, Anmerkungen. These were in northern Italy, and the second one was being refreshed in Germany. So yeah, but they did have Panzers at this point. And as you can see here, only Panzer IVs were left. So the Panzer IV shorts were out, and what was also out is the Flammpanzer company. So these were at this point all destroyed, I would assume, or at least worn out. The infantry we can see here. It's still fairly standard, not gonna look too much into this. They now had apparently Jagdpanzer Force and or Stuckforce here in the Panzerjägerabteilung. The Flak was still self-propelled, but if you look down here, number 5, it says 8.8 Flakpanzer Versuch, that means prototype. So yeah, these are these that I showed you earlier. They were apparently still there, but only 1 battery of 6 seems to be still up. Although I guess there's another 1 here. I didn't notice that before, but that might be towed. Kind of weird. But yeah, so these were also still there. Now, in terms of their weapons, some things here. They have a Soll and an Ist column, so how much they should have, how much they actually have. They were supposed to have 1,634 MP38 or 40s, had only 706. However, they had 676 MPI, so Berettas basically, to make up for the shortfall to a degree. They were supposed to have 270 Sturmgewehr 44, they only had 6. The SDG 44 was fairly rare in Italy and did not see much use in that area. And it's also generally fairly rare in Panzer divisions. K98Ks, fairly normal. They also had 277 Carcanos, 59 G41, 108 G43s. And the sniper rifles were apparently the ZF41 kind. They only had 26, so also not that many. It's interesting here that they had fewer light machine guns 42 compared to the MG34, so also somewhat outdated for 1945. But the heavy machine guns were mostly MG42s. They had Panzerschrecks now, and here we go into the mortars. First the German ones, then Italian ones, and French ones that they have, and also 12 centimeter Russian copied heavy mortars where they had 11. These are the same ones for FH2 players that we have on Oglidov, but German, maybe some minor changes. Yeah, these are the Grilles, and these are the tank weapons, and then we can go down here to see artillery and flamethrowers. They are 24, and it says here flamethrowers SFW, so self-propelled flamethrowers, the Panzer IIIs. They were supposed to have 12, which maybe was the original number, but they have none that could be used at the moment. So yeah, they were gone. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.